Welcome to Lead the Way with Anna Gauker. Your guide, Anna Gauker, is on a quest of her own to find effective ways of creating change and inclusion in our communities. You have come to the right place if you believe in truth, justice, and coffee. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, this is Lead the Way, and I'm Anna Gauker. We are living in a very frightening and unusual time. For that reason, I was so glad to have the chance to talk with our guest in this episode, who has a calm and reassuring presence as well as much wisdom to share. Kelly Hora owns and operates Bluestem Acupuncture in Madison. We have a wide-ranging conversation in this episode about how she stumbled into her profession and her practical tips for getting through this strange moment. Enjoy. Kelly, thank you so much for making time for us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you are my acupuncturist. I've known you for a little while, and I know a bit about your background, but could you share a bit about how you started as an acupuncturist and what made you go for that?
Sure. I accidentally became an acupuncturist. I was not even aware of acupuncture. I had another career before I went to acupuncture school. So my story is that when I was in graduate school at the University of Maryland, I went to see an acupuncturist at the Student Health Center, and that was a really unusual situation to have an acupuncturist within a university setting. And I had a very positive experience. I had gone in, I was an athlete, and I was having some repetitive injuries, and she helped me with that. And also, I really benefited from a kind of mental health perspective. I thought it was really interesting how my physical symptoms got better, but also I felt like acupuncture really helped my mood. So that's how I discovered acupuncture. And then I graduated and I worked for a few years in a different industry. And I just really felt like I wanted a different kind of career and um, thought about going to acupuncture school. So I wound up just switching back and enrolling in acupuncture school. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
Well, maybe I don't know anything about you. What were you in school for?
I was in school. I used to be a conservation ecologist. So I was in a program studying conservation biology and policy and management. So a lot of people that graduate from my program went on to work for, organizations. For a while, I worked for the Nature Conservancy. So a lot of people that care about conservation, but sort of want to work in a more policy oriented realm.
And you worked in that area for a while after grad school. What were you
Yep.
doing?
I had been a biologist doing field work. So I used to study rare and endangered plants, and my work was all outside. When I was at the Nature Conservancy, I was working to support scientists in the field and helping to organize the data they were gathering to um, update things like lists of endangered species or conservation efforts on certain public lands to help manage endangered species. So there was some interesting overlap because a lot of the plants that we were working on were considered medicinal plants. And acupuncture is a medical model that's based on almost an ecological model of seeing how all the different systems in the body interact, and how certain choices we make have impacts on the whole system. So it's really, in some ways, really similar to the work I used to do. It's just that acupuncture is more for people.
So the more that you were learning about your job at the time, would you say that drove you into a greater interest in acupuncture? Like, how did you decide to make that switch?
Well, part of it was that I felt that the work I was doing was very good mission driven work, but I really missed having a more hands-on day-to-day life experience, because I transitioned from being in the field to being in an office sort of supporting the people in the field. So what I realized was that I just really kind of wanted a different lifestyle. So I recognized that if I were to become an acupuncturist, I could still use all the principles that I was using as a scientist. I could just apply them and work with people instead. So that was a big motivation for my switch.
How did you choose a program, and what was your schooling like for acupuncture?
Well, I was living in the Washington, D.C. area at the time, and there was a school in my area that I was familiar with because that's the school that my acupuncturist had gone to. But I didn't want to limit myself, so I went and visited several schools on the West Coast. But ultimately, I decided to stay with that program in the DC area because I felt like it taught a particular style of acupuncture that really resonated with me. Chinese medicine is a really old medicine. It comes from a time where people's lives were really different than they are today. So inherently, the medicine uses a lot of metaphors that are more based in seasonal concepts rather than our new biomedical concepts. So what's true is that you can explain acupuncture according to modern biomedical principles, but the roots of the medicine started before we even had those constructs. So a lot of acupuncture is described in terms of seasonal metaphors, and a lot of elements in nature. And the acupuncture program that I chose really stressed that a lot. So it was a really good fit for me.
How long is the program?
When I went to acupuncture school, it was a master degree program. And if it was a part time program, it could last 3 to 4 years. Mine was a full time program, so it was about 2.5 years. The first part of the program is all classroom based learning. And then most schools also have a hands on component where you're working in a clinic and you have some supervision of faculty. And then over time, you have less and less supervision. So it's almost an apprenticeship model within the school in addition to classroom learning. One thing that was really unique about my school was that it had a contract with the Baltimore City Jail. So we did a lot of our hands on clinical hours working in the prison system doing acupuncture because they had a program that they had a certain facility within the jail that was primarily for people who were incarcerated on charges related to drug and alcohol. And so they were enrolled in certain addiction recovery programs, and acupuncture was part of that program. So I think about a quarter to a third of all of my hands-on clinical hours as a student was spent working, giving acupuncture in the jail. And that was a really unique and really amazing experience.
That's really incredible. I can't imagine and really would find that interesting to know like how that got started and like how they were even able to get something like that through to be approved, because that seems like it makes so much sense, but usually the things that make the most sense are not the things that actually get the stamp of approval to move forward. So that's good to hear. But
Yeah. I don't know how it was started originally, but I do know that I finished the program in 2003 and the services are still ongoing.
oh
So there's
wow.
still acupuncture happening in the jail. And then there are also residential programs where people may be a part of that, you know, perhaps people that are never incarcerated would make use of these residential programs, or it's also sort of a transitional program for people after they're released. And all of those programs are still in place. So I think that's really encouraging.
Yeah, no kidding. Did your schooling help you when you graduated in finding employment or knowing how to start your own business?
I wouldn't say that that was a big part of my training. It's much more incorporated into acupuncture schools today than it was then.
Okay. When did you start Bluestem Acupuncture?
I started in 2004, so I practiced in the DC area for a couple of years before moving to Madison.
Okay, and what kinds of services do you provide?
I provide a pretty general overview of services, mostly acupuncture. So, acupuncture as a profession includes inserting needles, but it's a branch of Chinese medicine. So, there's a variety of things that acupuncturists also do. Um, so we do acupuncture. There are some people who prefer not to have needles inserted, so I will often offer acupressure as as an option in those cases. Chinese medicine also includes talking to people about how their diet, how their lifestyle, um, how things like their sleep, and even just the stress they have in their lives can affect their health. So I really like that part of the work. It's almost a combination of acupuncture plus some coaching plus nutrition support. Qigong and Tai Chi and other movement, exercises can be part of Chinese medicine. So sometimes, sometimes I'll recommend certain movement practices for people to help them with their health. And then I have a combination of a private practice in Madison, and I also contract and provide services through one of the local hospitals. So, even in the approximately 15 years that I've been practicing, there's been a lot of broadening of acupuncture into other healthcare systems. So you'll see acupuncturists in outpatient hospital settings and inpatient hospital settings. You may see an acupuncturist in a hospice setting or private practice. There may even be acupuncturists who work for professional sports teams, and so it's definitely integrating into healthcare a lot these days.
Is that something that you've seen change over time? Like, is it really becoming more and more incorporated into other disciplines?
Yeah, definitely. When I started my practice, I remember if someone would call to schedule an appointment, we could spend up to 30 minutes on the phone. Just I could be answering their questions about acupuncture because it was almost considered more alternative medicine at that time. And now when somebody calls, generally they have been informed about acupuncture. They probably know someone who's had it. Maybe their doctors recommended it. So people are generally just so informed that they just schedule their appointment right away. But, most of the major cancer treatment centers in the United States offer acupuncture. The VA has an incredible acupuncture benefit program for veterans that have pain management issues. It's broadly covered by a variety of private insurers. And just recently, Medicare approved acupuncture as a service for the coverage of lower back pain. So it's definitely the access to acupuncture is increasing, probably, every year there's more, but in the last 5 to 10 years, it's been pretty significant.
I know that you're really active in outreach and connecting with lawmakers to help promote acupuncture and make it more available to consumers. What's something that you've learned through those experiences about how to communicate in a way that helps people understand the benefits of your discipline?
Well, that's a good question. I think what I enjoy about speaking about acupuncture is that it's an opportunity to communicate the principles of the medicine to whatever group you're talking about in a way that would be most understandable for them. So last year, our state association, so Wisconsin Society of Acupuncturists, we were invited to give a presentation to the governor's task force on opioid abuse prevention. And so, when we're talking to policymakers, I think it's really important just to give an overview about acupuncture and make sure everybody understands what the procedure is and the logistics. What does it look like if you're going to have an acupuncture appointment? But we're also able to provide a lot of data and statistics, not only about the evidence for acupuncture, and there have been a lot of studies published showing the benefit of acupuncture in pain management, but also because some states around the country already incorporate acupuncture into some of their state programs, whether it's Medicaid or workers' compensation. We have the opportunity to share that information to policymakers and help them understand that the incorporation of acupuncture into healthcare can do things like help people return to work. It can help reduce reliance or dose of pain medications. And that's all really important, particularly as related to the opioid epidemic, because there's a shared goal in helping people manage their pain and helping to reduce any over reliance on opioids or other addictive pain medications. So it's been a really wonderful time to talk to policymakers and talk to other healthcare providers and talk to patients, because everybody wants to try to find really viable, healthy, non addicting options that doctors can prescribe and patients can readily access.
I'm assuming that COVID-19 has had a big impact on the way that you do your practice. How have you adapted?
Yeah, it definitely has had a big impact. In general, as with many healthcare providers in Wisconsin, I closed my practice about the middle of March, and immediately I still had patients on my schedule. So my process was to reach out to the people that I wasn't going to be able to see in my clinical practice. Just like a lot of medical providers, acupuncturists have been able to interact with patients just as we are here, using teleconference or phone calls to check in. And as I said earlier, there's a lot that acupuncturists do with patients in addition to inserting needles. So it's been an interesting opportunity to connect with people and talk with them and try to offer them support in a different way. One of the outcomes of this pandemic has been that it has certainly um, affected people it may be affecting people in pain management if they're not able to have the complementary medical services that they're used to, but it's also been very stressful at an emotional level. And acupuncture is a modality that is also really wonderful at helping to alleviate stress and helping people with mental health. So it's been great that even though we haven't been able to see as many patients in the clinic, that working with people remotely or virtually, we could offer tools that we could offer acupressure ideas for people and talk with them about stress management techniques, and kind of talk them through other kinds of holistic tools in addition to what we would do with the needles. So that's been really good. And over the last couple of weeks, I have been able to open my clinic and see patients, not as many patients as before, but, I've been able to maintain social distancing recommendations and follow CDC cleaning protocols so that I can offer a clean and safe clinic. So we'll kind
Wow,
of see how things go from here.
very cool. So what is that like when you're in clinic with people and you're performing the same necessary things but at a social distance?
So the changes that a lot of providers are making, and I think this, accounts not just for acupuncturists, but a lot of clinical providers, because even physicians in primary care and other medical services, were on pause for a while. Generally, the recommendations are to ensure that you're maintaining social distancing and you're reducing the passing of multiple people through your clinic. So things that we're doing at our clinic is we're only seeing one patient at a time, and we're setting things up so that the patients don't need to, they're able to come right into the clinic and wash their hands and relax on the table, and we can provide acupuncture so that we're in the room together for enough time to catch up and insert the needles, and then patients are allowed to rest on the table for a while. So we are closer than 6 feet while we do the procedure, but we're also able to space things out and make sure that we only have one patient at a time in the clinic.
Have people's concerns that they've brought up during their sessions with you changed in the last couple of months? Like, what are some of the specific things that you're hearing a lot that people are needing?
Well, I think that a lot of people that come for acupuncture are coming for help with pain management. So I think it's going to be interesting over the next few weeks and months for all of us to have these conversations with people and find out how it's been for them to not have access to some of the tools that they've been used to having. So I think that comes up a lot. People who have experienced that acupuncture helps reduce their pain or helps them manage the pain that they have. That's a big reason that they're coming back, or the questions that they have. And I do think that there's just been a lot more stress. There's been so many life changes as a result of the pandemic that many people that I'm talking to have noted that they might have been experiencing difficulty sleeping, or just feeling more stressed, or more emotional than they were in the past, which I think is completely reasonable considering all the changes that we've had to adapt to so quickly.
What are some tip things that people can do on their own that you would recommend?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's actually been an interesting time for people to get more clear about what they have within their own grasp to help them when many of the options that they might have counted on in the past are not available. I think actually that's a very personal, some people find, getting outside to be really important, and, going for long walks, or, getting fresh air, while other people, find that they really need to get on the phone and talk with their loved ones. I think it really varies from person to person, but I think the important thing is kind of coaching people to just become aware of what kinds of activities or which people in their lives provide an anchor for them, and then just to feel encouraged to really make space for that. I think, there's a few acupressure points that I've taught a lot of people that can help with relaxation and that can help them rest. Certain techniques that can help you physically move out of a place where with a lot of adrenaline. We sometimes call it fight or flight. Just certain techniques through breathing or through movement or through acupressure, where you can actually just invite your nervous system into a calmer place, even if you're not able to do that just by telling yourself to do it. There's a lot of physical or breathing practices that can help your body do that for you. So that's been really fun to help people find.
How do we learn more about that?
Well, I could describe one of the techniques or,
If possible, that'd be awesome.
yeah, I think one of the best things that I've learned, and I'll just give you a little scenario, and this kind of comes from my biologist perspective, is that at a basic level, we could say the nervous system has it has more than this, but at a basic level, we can be really aroused, which might be what we are. If we perceive a threat in our environment, then our natural inclination is to try to escape. And once we're safe, then our nervous system can calm down and we can relax and be more calm. So if we are running away from something scary, either literally or figuratively, what happens is that we tend to do a lot of shallow breathing, and our chest gets really tight, and we don't take long breaths. We're just sort of keeping our breath up shallow. And that can even happen if we're having anxious thoughts. So, one of the things I like to teach people is that the best way to relax your body is to just pause and let your body exhale completely before breathing in its next breath. And the scientific rationale behind that is that if you're being chased by something scary, then you're never going to have a chance to exhale completely. You can only exhale completely when you're safe and when you're at rest. So, one technique that some people like gives your mind something to do, which is to let yourself exhale and then wait for your body to inhale on its own. Your body will always draw in breath without you being aware of it. That's how we stay alive, and that's how we're able to breathe while we're busy thinking and doing other things. So the first step is to let the breath out and then just pause and just notice the feeling of your body bringing in its next breath. And then once you feel that you're able to let yourself exhale all the way, then I teach people to let the length of their exhale be 1 or 2 counts longer than the length of the inhale. And if you kind of follow that mathematical formula, when you allow your exhale to last a count or two longer, then neurologically, your nervous system will come to a place of rest. So it's a kind of a simple breathing technique, but it's the kind of thing that can be really helpful at bedtime if it's hard to turn off your brain. It can be really helpful after being on a stressful phone call or having a stressful meeting, or if you're feeling kind of cooped up or not able to do some of the things that you might want to do, and you start feeling anxious about that. You can do that breathing practice anytime during the day. And the beauty of it is that you can even do it while you're with another person and they don't even know that you're doing it. So it's pretty handy, and you can it's like a tool you can pull out anytime, and it's not dramatic, but it has a big impact on how we feel.
Yeah, I'm just doing it right now. And it makes so much sense because I can tell that for myself, especially like throughout the day when I'm breathing on my own, I have this like sense of urgency all the time. And I know a big part of that is the fact that I generally don't breathe with any kind of ease. So I'm always kind of in these like quick, short breaths because that's just how my body is, and it's, kind of a labored breathing all the time. But when I'm on a ventilator at night, I can tell such a huge difference, and suddenly my whole disposition changes, my outlook on the world and what I can accomplish changes, and I just feel like nothing bad could possibly happen because I'm breathing these like long, slow, deep breaths, and everything is just beautiful. And then, you kind of can tell how big of an impact that can have. So, yeah, I'm all about the breathing. So good. And taking the time to really pay attention to each breath makes so much sense.
When I hear you describing that, I really get that idea of the experience of feeling more safe.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Definitely. And I know that it is sort of counterintuitive that I drink a lot of coffee because that also helps me get that extra boost for breathing. But it probably also gets me feeling more anxious also. So it's really a vicious cycle. But the things that we do. Yeah, what would you recommend for other people who are thinking about going into acupuncture?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I think I would recommend reaching out to an acupuncturist or at least visiting an acupuncturist as a patient and see what the experience is like. I think that for me, that was my entry point into the profession. I think there's a lot to learn just by talking to people and seeing in real time what they do and asking them, what is it like to run your own business, or, what are all the different employment opportunities for acupuncturists. But there are schools around the country. There's Midwest College of Oriental Medicine is located in Wisconsin. But there are programs all over the country. So I think that, I think there are a lot of opportunities to become trained.
Well, Kelly, thank you so much. This was so interesting, and I think will be helpful for a lot of people.
Thank you for having me. It was really fun to answer your questions, and thanks for asking such interesting questions.
Thank you so much. That was Kelly Hora of Bluestem Acupuncture. Check out their services at MadisonAcupuncture.com. That's Madison-acupuncture.com. Remember that all episodes of Lead the Way can be found on Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, TuneIn, and Apple Podcasts. And be sure to rate and review us after you listen on Apple Podcasts. This episode was brought to you by the time and talent of Buzz Kemper and Tyler Willenbrink. I'm Anna Gaucher. Until next time.